Tune in for a tale, words that set sail.
Digital Splendor, Literature Illuminated.
Today, we're diving into Booker T. Washington's autobiography, Up From Slavery. It's a story that really makes you ask a pretty fundamental question. How does someone who is born with literally nothing, not even a name or a birth date, rise up to become a leader of a nation? We're going to follow his incredible journey right from the absolute bottom and see how sometimes our greatest obstacles can actually become our greatest strengths.
Washington starts his entire story with these words, and honestly, they're just chilling. In one single sentence, he lays out the brutal reality of slavery. You're denied the most basic facts of your own life. He was born into a world where he didn't have a name, didn't have an age, and as far as anyone was concerned, didn't have a future.
So let's try to step into his world. If you think of this as a hero's journey, this was his ordinary world. But as you're about to see, it was a place of just constant, profound deprivation. Nothing ordinary about it.
I mean, just try to picture this. A tiny little log cabin with a dirt floor for his whole family. No glass in the windows, just big openings that let in the freezing cold. His bed, a pile of filthy rags. He even recalls this one shirt he had to wear, made from the roughest, coarsest part of flax. He said it was like a kind of torture against his skin. And get this, he never once sat down to eat a proper, civilized meal with his family. His first memories weren't of games or fun, but just misery.
But in all of this darkness, the very first spark of hope came from the quietest place you could imagine. He remembers being woken up late at night by his mother, who was kneeling over him and his siblings, secretly, quietly praying for their freedom. For him, that was it. That was the call to adventure. And then one day, something happens. He's working in the pitch-black darkness of a coal mine, and he overhears two miners talking. They're talking about this great school for colored people somewhere in Virginia. And as they describe it, this place, the Hampton Institute, becomes something more than a school in his mind. To Washington, it sounded like paradise itself. It was a goal so powerful, it literally set his entire life on a brand new course.
So with this one ambition just burning inside him, he sets off. But you have to understand, this wasn't just a simple trip. This was an almost impossible journey. We're talking 500 miles, and he was starting with pretty much nothing.
He had a destination, Hampton. But that's it. No map, no money. All he had was this absolute conviction that he had to get there, no matter what. He started out with just a few dollars, and you can probably guess what happened next. They ran out almost immediately. He had to face these brutal trials of poverty and racism, walking for miles and miles, begging for rides and wagons, and getting turned away from places to stay just because of the color of his skin. So he finally makes it to Richmond, Virginia, but he's still 82 miles away from his goal. He's completely broke, he's exhausted, and he's starving. But as he later wrote, he was everything but discouraged. That night, he found a place to sleep under a raised wooden sidewalk with the sound of people's footsteps echoing right over his head. After working some odd jobs in Richmond just to scrape together enough money for that last leg of the journey, he finally arrives. He's at Hampton, the promised land. But his biggest test was still waiting for him, right there at the front door. When he walked in and presented himself to the head teacher, she was, let's just say, doubtful. I mean, you have to see it from her perspective. She saw a young man who looked more like a worthless loafer or tramp than a promising student. So for hours, she just made him wait, and his entire future was just hanging in the balance. Finally, the teacher pointed to a broom and told him to sweep a nearby recitation room. Washington knew it instantly. This was it. This was his college entrance exam. And he didn't just sweep it, he swept the room 3 times. He didn't just dust, he found a dusting cloth and dusted every single surface 4 times, moving all the furniture to clean every last corner. He poured his entire soul into that one simple task because he knew his whole future depended on it. After he was done, she came in, inspected his work with a clean white handkerchief, and couldn't find a single speck of dust. Then she delivered the verdict. And with those 10 simple words, his world changed forever. He would later say that sweeping that room was the best examination he ever passed.
So, he was in. He'd passed the test. But his real education at Hampton was about so much more than what was in the books. It was about discovering a whole new way to live and a real purpose for his life.
See, before he got to Hampton, Washington kind of thought education was a ticket, a way to escape hard work. But the school taught him the exact opposite, the dignity of labor. This was a really radical idea at the time. He learned that practical, skilled work wasn't something to be ashamed of or run away from. No, it was the very foundation of character, of progress, and of economic independence for his entire community.
So what did he do after he graduated? Did he go find an easy life for himself? Nope. He went immediately back to his old hometown of Malden with a mission. He opened schools for children during the day, and then at night for adults, many of them former slaves who were desperate for an education. He taught them basic hygiene, like how to use a toothbrush, which he saw as a real, practical tool for self-respect. He started reading rooms, debate societies. He came back to lift his community up with the practical tools they needed, right from the ground up.
And this whole philosophy, it was forged in the fire of slavery and on that 500-mile walk. For Washington, success was never about how high up you get. It was always about the distance you've climbed and the obstacles you had to overcome just to get there.
Washington's journey from a nameless slave to a builder of a nation, it just leaves us with this really profound question. He seems to be suggesting that the struggle itself, that process of overcoming impossible odds, is what actually forges greatness. It kind of forces us to ask ourselves, could our own greatest obstacles actually be our greatest advantages?